Hello, everybody. Welcome to our third episode of CCE's Community Chat with Tony and Kat. My name is Tony, Anthony Medina, the Assistant Director for the Center for Community Engagement, joined always by the wonderful
Catherine Collins. I'm a marketing intern at the Center for Community Engagement.
We thank you guys for being here. This is our third episode, and for those joining us for the first time, Community Chat is an opportunity to share all the awesome work happening in our community with our students, with our community partners, with the greater Spokane community, and really have a chance to dive into different issues that matter to us as staff and students and as an office and the center and as a community. So this is our third episode now, and we're rocking and rolling. We're appreciating everybody who's been joining us live and everybody who's been viewing on YouTube after we post this. So for those viewing live, thank you for being here. If you're just joining us, please make sure that you put yourselves on mute for the remainder of the talk. At the end, if we have time, there'll be a chance to ask some questions for our guests if we have time at the end. So thank you all for being here. What else, Catherine? Anything else we want to go over before we start the show?
Not that I can think of, but if you do think of a question while our speakers are talking, feel free to drop that in the chat too. You can either do it privately or to everyone, and we'll try and get to it if we have time.
And week after week, we've been doing this show. Our viewership has been growing. Last week we broke the servers for Zoom. There were so many guests that Zoom called us and they said, you can't do the show again. We worked out a deal. We're back. We're here. And Zoom is okay with what we're doing. Hopefully they fixed that problem. We won't break the servers this time. But yeah, we have audience all over the world, nationally, internationally. My Uncle Joe in New Jersey, he's listening. My cousin Andrea in Miami, she's listening in. My friend Jake down in LA, he's listening. Catherine, who's listening for you?
I know Darcy's family in Ecuador is turning in. My gran in Massachusetts.
Yeah. This is crazy. So yeah, our audience is growing every week. So for the dozens in attendance today and the millions watching at home, thank you for joining us. Catherine, if you want to get us started, turning it over to our guests.
Yeah, for sure. So today we're being joined by some of our coordinators and members of the GUSR family, and that's Gonzaga University Specialized Recreation. And we're hoping to chat a little bit about what celebrating abilities looks like in the Spokane community. So whether that's like local initiatives or ally opportunities, kind of whatever comes up. And so I know here to talk more about that is Emma Brink and Kelsey Walls. So they're going to tell us a little bit about what GUSR means to Gonzaga. Go for it.
Hi, everybody. My name is Kelsey, and I am the Special Events Coordinator for GUSR.
I'm Emma. I'm a junior this year, and I'm the lead coordinator with GUSR. I'm so excited that we were able to do this despite everything that's going on. But before we start, I kind of just want to explain what GUSR is so everybody has a better understanding. So GUSR is a program at Gonzaga through CCE, and we are dedicated to celebrating abilities and building relationships. We pair students from Gonzaga with adults with disabilities in the Spokane community to form those relationships based on respect and mutual support. And we really focus on breaking down stigmas in that community and celebrating abilities and advocating for inclusion. And yeah, so we have programming twice a week. On Thursdays, we have play practice, and we get ready for a play that we have at the end of the year. And then on Saturdays, we have sports practice. And during that first semester, we bowl and then go to the Special Olympics. And during second semester, we do basketball and a bunch of other fun things. So yeah.
Thank you, Emma. So typically, GUSR hosts a Celebrate Abilities series or week every year in which we put on different events and activities for our community. And basically the whole point of that is to just spread awareness and celebrate abilities, which is a ton of fun for everyone. In the past, we've had guest speakers, and we've had a GUSR talent show in which we've partnered with GSBA. We've also tabled in Hemmingson, where we've sold t-shirts that I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with. I know I'm wearing one today. I think Emma is as well, but that's a ton of fun. So it's one of our favorite events, and we were super bummed that we weren't able to do it this year in our traditional format, but Luckily, we've been able to partner with Anthony and Catherine to put on this year's Celebrate Abilities series, just in a little different format. But we're very excited to kick it off. So thank you everyone for being here today.
Thank you, Kelsey. Thank you, Emma. So without further ado, I think we can turn it over to our guest. Catherine, if you want to tee that up too.
Yeah, so we're just looking to hear a little bit more about our guests. So maybe if you could tell us, well, who are you, and perhaps your role in the community and or your relationship to GUSR, and just anything more about yourself you'd want to touch on. And for fun, maybe like one silly or ridiculous thing that you've been doing to keep yourself entertained through distance. And I'll post that on the chat as well. But John, if you want to kick us off, feel free to start rambling.
Of course. Well, hello, my name is John Lemus. I'm an activist advocate here in Spokane, and I work for Atwork. I've been involved in the developmental disabilities community for about 7 years as a policy advocate, or 17 years as a policy advocate. That's where my experience comes from. I've been involved in a couple of GUSR events during Celebrate Abilities Week, and I'm happy to be with you guys today.
Sweet t-shirt, John.
I think the last question is, what am I doing to kind of have fun or kind of get through the quarantine? I own a electric scooter similar to a Lime scooter, and so in the evenings I'll take off on that and just go for a ride on the trails.
Oh, nice. What color scooter is it? Is it actually a Lime scooter?
It's not. It's a Segway 9-Bot Max, so it's gray.
Awesome. Thank you, John.
Yeah.
Danika?
Oh, I'm up next. All right.
Yes.
Hi, everyone. I'm Danika Morrison, and I know many of the people on this call, so hello, everyone. It's good to see your boxes. I am a Gonzaga and GUSR alumna, and I was the lead coordinator just last year, my senior year, and my sophomore year, I was the special events coordinator, and then volunteer in between those years and my freshman year. So heavily involved with GUSR, and it actually led me to the job that I'm in now, which is also with Atwork. John is one of my coworkers there. I see him clapping. I am an employment consultant, so I work with individuals in the community in job development, so finding jobs, and also job coaching, so working with people at their jobs to support them there. So yeah, it's an honor to be here, and I'm so excited to be involved in GUSR still. And one fun thing or kind of goofy thing that I've been doing lately is I think that I'm a carpenter, and so I have built myself a coffee table, and I also am planning, fingers crossed, to build myself an outdoor bench and an outdoor chair set for my new backyard that I'm remodeling. So that's my kind of fun thing to keep me going.
Awesome. Thank you, Danika.
Of course.
And
Chris,
Chris?
I think you're next.
Yeah, I know. Well, I'm, you know.
You have to say it anyway.
Sorry.
No
I'm
worries.
Chris. I'm Chris. Hold on.
What do you don't have to, that's just a question. What do you do at GUSR? What do you like about Gonzaga?
Okay. Gonzaga, it's fun. We do cool stuff. Mostly we just have friendship.
And what are you doing to keep yourself busy?
Entertain my dog, who is running. Entertaining my dog, who is running next to me.
Here's her face. There's her face.
Awesome.
This is
Chris,
her.
what's your dog's name?
Daisy.
Daisy. Awesome. Good to meet you, Daisy.
Chris, can I ask, how long have you been a part of GUSR?
Oh boy.
You remember how many years?
I started when I was living with Darby at
Wrong.
Ashley Andrews.
It was, you were probably,
I'm 20,
and how old are you?
32,
Maybe 12 years?
12
Oh,
years.
wow.
Wow.
Has it been going 12 years? He started
Yeah,
right
it's
after.
been- I think so. Hannah, do you know how long GUSR has been going on for?
believe GUSR started in 2003. Danika, I see nods. Yeah, Kelsey?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
15-year
probably-
anniversary was last year or 2 years ago.
Okay, so he probably
2003 was, yeah.
started a couple years after. He started maybe 2 years after it started.
Oh, wow.
And
So
he
you're a
had-
veteran, Chris.
He hasn't missed a practice unless
Nope.
he had to.
That's awesome. It's awesome to have you, man. Thanks for joining.
Yep.
Oh, very cool. Well, thank you all for your introductions. We appreciate getting to know you a little bit better. For the second question, let's see. Gabby, would you mind muting your screen if that's okay? I'm just seeing you come up a little bit. Thanks. Okay, for our second question, we heard a little bit from Emma and Kelsey about celebrate abilities. But for some of our guests, we might not know what that means. We wanted to ask you all, what does celebrate abilities mean to you? What does that phrase, what do you think of when you hear that phrase, celebrate abilities? And we can start with John.
I think what celebrate abilities means to me is just that we celebrate the things that everyone can do, including people with disabilities. I think that's incredibly important. But it's not only that, it's also working to create a more inclusive environment where people with disabilities are included within their communities organically, and get to go to work and do fun things and all of that good stuff. So when I think about celebrate abilities, it's kind of a culture in and of itself of moving forward and creating a more inclusive world for people with disabilities.
Thank you, John. Danika?
For me, celebrate abilities is, like John said, I think a lot of this will be echoed, but yeah, just celebrating those unique capabilities of each individual, and whether that's how they communicate or what they can do with their bodies and how they move their bodies, or how they see or how they feel or touch. There's just so many things that should be celebrated, and how people cherish each day or what people do with their days. I think we talk a lot in employment about person-centeredness and discovery, and just kind of finding those unique gifts and the talents of the people that we work with and serve. And I think that's exactly what Celebrate Abilities is, and GUSR does that so well in their recreational activities. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Danika. And for Chris?
Yes. Student Gonzaga is a specialized program, and it stands for Student Recreation Program. Fun, arts and crafts, have fun, sharing, memories, all kinds. Basically, just a normal basics.
Awesome. And when you hear celebrate abilities, Chris,
Yeah.
what do you think of when you hear celebrate abilities?
To support us.
Awesome. Oh, very cool. We can come back to these questions too if anyone has any more thoughts. But we can go to our next question if that works. Catherine, what are you thinking? Do you think we should do number 3?
Yeah, I'd love to hear like more specifically, what does that mean in everyone's like daily life? I know we have, yeah, some more like detailed versions of that, but go for it.
Cool, cool. Okay, so for our third question, we wanted to ask our participants, how can we foster more inclusive environments? So if celebrating abilities is about recognizing those unique pieces of ourselves that have to be lifted up and celebrated, how can we, all of us, everyone in this room, everyone in this chat, foster more inclusive environments? What does self-advocacy look like? And why is it important to include people with disabilities in any talk or initiative that surrounds disability inclusion? So how can we foster more inclusive environments? We can start with John.
So in the self-advocacy community, we have this long-standing saying that is nothing for or about us without us. And that's kind of like the keystone of the self-advocacy movement for people with disabilities. And I think that that's the beginning of creating an inclusive environment, or is just making that commitment to nothing for or about us without us. And then looking at how we can, I'm sorry, I'm looking at my screen at the question again.
It's a pretty big question, man.
Yeah. And I think self-advocacy comes into play for that, because when we're creating these inclusive communities, people with disabilities need to have space at the table. Believe it or not, in my work in the policy community, there are dozens of tables where parents and professionals are getting together, but they're not including people with disabilities on how to best go about policy change or whatever they're going after. And so we talk about, it's important to include those people with disabilities because they bring that first like lived experience in helping craft policy. So that's just one example. And I think that it's important that people with disabilities are included in these kind of initiatives because, again, we go back to that lived experience piece. People with disabilities are their own best experts on their lives and their struggles and what's important to them. And I think that one of the things I will say is as those people with disabilities are included in these types of initiatives, there's really a gap sometimes between the parent community and the disability community. And we find this sometimes with the parents that we work with at Atwork. And it's kind of bringing them along to see what their sons and daughters can do and what their abilities are. And I think the more that we hear from people with disabilities about how, their successes and their challenges, that's kind of gonna bridge the gaps, one of the gaps that we have with our parent community.
Thank you, John.
Mm-hmm.
For Danika, what does this look like from your perspective?
Yeah, so John is kind of our advocacy guy at work, and I kind of am more in the field working in employment. And so when I think of what inclusive, like how can we foster inclusive environments, it's having employers hire people with disabilities. Like many people's parents own businesses or have family members who own businesses, and just like talking to them and educating them on what working with a person with an individual or working with a person with a disability is like, is I think just the first stepping stones toward that inclusive and integrated workplace. And much to what John said, there are many meetings that I have, like intake meetings with families who have individuals that want to work, and the parent is talking the whole time about where they should work or what hours they should work. And I think a lot of that just comes from maybe being a protective parent, but also we need to be sitting down with the individual that we're serving who's going to be working and saying, where do you want to work and what hours do you want and what kind of job do you want? Because if you don't like your job, you're not going to want to be there for a long time. And our goal is to have people in their jobs for years and years and years if that's what they want, and working the hours that they want. So it's just listening to the individuals that I personally work with, and just like having employers offer the same opportunities that they would to somebody who didn't have a disability. So yeah, that from my perspective in the employment field, that's kind of what that looks like. And the quote that John said at the beginning, I have a little bit different of adaptation to it, but I have it framed sitting on my desk at work, and that kind of drives the work that I do. So, because I know that none of the work that we do can even be done without the individuals that we serve. So focusing on the individuals and really hearing the voice of the people that I'm working with and serve. So.
Thank you, Danika.
Yeah.
For Chris?
Yes, include more activities in the community and social events.
Awesome. Very cool. And I know that, let's see. Sorry, Catherine, I know you have the next question. And I think kind of building off of our last question, right? We talk about ways in which we can foster more inclusive communities. And right now we're kind of living through this interesting time of COVID-19 and aren't able to be in physical communities right now. And I know that's been affecting people in a bunch of different ways. So didn't want to run away from that question either. So Catherine, if you want to take us to question number 4, we can go with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly that. Like how, I guess, what exactly do those like themes and topics look like in the middle of like distance and COVID? Obviously, like this isn't like the only time that those are an issue, but I think they're like really maybe like shining a light on what's already there. So if you guys could talk a little bit more about how this community is being uniquely affected by the current context that is COVID.
Sure. So this is something I can probably talk for a while about, so cut me off if I start rambling. So People First of Washington, I'm the president of our local chapter here in Spokane, and the state organization realizes that loneliness and isolation is one of the biggest statistics that relate to individuals with disabilities. And so when these stay-at-home orders first started, People First created 2 Zoom calls a day so that people would have folks to talk to. And anybody could say whatever was on their mind. And it kind of morphed into this big thing. We've had people join from Canada, Australia, all over the United States. And it's just a time for people to get together and talk. And so during these calls, we have 2 a day, one from 12 to 3 and another from 5 to 8, which I think went until almost midnight last night. I think I fell asleep with Zoom running on my computer. But it's some of the themes that we've been hearing is that people with disabilities are frustrated that they can't get out and live their lives. They can't go to a doctor when they need to. We had a member of that group who ended up in the emergency room with a very serious infection. And the only way that she could be seen by anybody was to go to the emergency room because none of the doctors right now are really seeing anybody. So we're really seeing during COVID that people with disabilities are having a hard time accessing the things that they need, whether it be groceries, whether it be medicine, whether it be medical care, whether it just be social time. I believe there was an article on the front page of the paper a couple of weeks ago from Project ID. And that's a good example of how we've kind of had to adjust as a disability community to this kind of remote world. And that's come with some struggles because not everybody with a disability has access to technology. That's one thing that we've learned through this process is we really need to be working harder to get technology into the hands of people with disabilities so it can open up their lives a little bit more. So I know that was kind of a long-winded answer. I apologize.
No, that was awesome. Thank you, John. I do a follow-up for you. For those conversations that are happening, are they open to the community? Like, are they open to, how do you learn more about that for folks who are interested?
The one requirement is that it be a person with a disability who's joining those calls. So if you have individuals who are interested, contact me and I'll get you the Zoom information.
Awesome, awesome. You begin maybe include how to get in contact with you at the end of our video.
Yes.
And the other follow-up question I had was just around, you mentioned folks in the community not being able to get groceries or be connected to medical services. Do you know of any organizations in Spokane that are working on those issues, that are trying to, mitigate those challenges?
So every county has an area agency on aging, and they have a developmental disabilities administration office. And so as far as I know, individuals who receive paid services, the state is figuring out how to get their needs met. A lot of my self-advocate friends don't drive. This is another reason why I'm thankful for my scooter, as I can just throw a couple bags of groceries on my handlebars and not have to worry about taking the bus, which I really don't want to do during this period. Yeah, so I know that some of the state agencies are kind of figuring out how to get things to people and how to get extra support to folks who need it. And a lot of my friends who don't drive are investing in Instacart or Shipt or other things like that to get things that they need. But that ends up being an extra added cost to them that they wouldn't normally have.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you, John. For Danika, what does this question look like for you?
Yeah, I attend like tons of webinars every week. That's kind of been how I'm working lately from home. And almost every week there's at least one or two webinars that talks about how to reach the people that we serve remotely. And employment at this time looks very, very different. We're not really doing, a lot of places aren't really hiring. And if they are hiring, the people that we serve might have either compromised immune systems or family or housing situations where they can't be in the environments that are hiring for work. And so employment is kind of not at a standstill, but just kind of hovering in a certain place. But it just in terms of what John said, like reaching out to the individuals that I serve, I've had to make a very like conscious effort to stay in contact with them and just check in and see how they're doing. A lot of my individuals that I work with are either out of work right now or are temporarily furloughed. And so they're unsure of when they're going to get their jobs back. And that uncertainty leads to a lot of stressors in different ways and stressors for families as well. And so just being able to reach out to the people that I serve and check in on them has been really important, because for some of them, the activities that they do weekly have just been completely cut off. Like GUSR, I'm sure the GUSR community is really hurting right now and feeling lonely, and maybe that one Thursday a week at play practice was their favorite thing of the week, and now they don't get that. So And similarly for me, I mean, I take people out job developing, and so pick them up and we drive around and go to places and check them out. But for them, that's not happening anymore. And maybe that was like the highlight of their week. And I know it was the highlight of mine. So not being able to do that has been difficult, and just have to make that effort to interact and let them know that they're still valued and I'm thinking about them and working for them and working with them. And we're trying to do a lot remotely for employment, but like I said, it's a little more difficult, and we're just learning how to adapt. But yeah, just caring for the people that I serve is how I've kind of had to handle this. And again, like John said, a lot of people don't have access to the things that we do as students and educators and employers that provide us with laptops. So a lot of people I serve don't have Zoom or don't even have like FaceTime or anything like that capabilities. So it's been difficult, but yeah, that's how we've kind of been adjusting and adapting.
Thank you, Danika.
Mm-hmm.
And for Chris?
Yes.
Do you want to repeat the question?
For sure. Catherine, do you want to
Yeah.
repeat?
Yeah, I'd love to. But Chris, and just thinking about like how is this community, like how is your community and like just in general, like life living like with different needs being like, how does that uniquely affect I guess just like the day-to-day basis during COVID? I guess how have you been staying connected to friends, and like what does work look like right now, those kinds of things? Sorry, that was loaded. Those are a lot of different things. But
Working, stay on task.
But how's it doing COVID? Like, are you working?
Right now I am not working at the moment because of the corona.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been going out a lot. I've been going out places such as besides our lake cabin and my grandpa's.
But what about being connected with GUSR? How's that been?
Being with GUSR is the best days of my life.
I got the box open and I was like, Kathy, what the fuck?
How do you feel about not
any other bathrooms? It's like,
Austin, sorry. Austin, we might need you to mute your audio really quickly. Thanks, friend. Sorry, Chris.
GUSR? What
Yeah.
if they help you? What's made your day since you haven't been able to go to GUSR? What's happened?
I miss seeing Matt Johnson.
What have the coordinators done for you? What have you?
Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. But you've been Zooming.
Zooming
With
Kelsey
and Nicole.
Nicole, Nicola, and Kesley.
And they made, how they made you feel?
Good.
So I would love to chime in just about the care for people, because Christopher also ended up in the emergency room with an infection, and they think kind of that the cause of some of that was stress. And stress is something that we don't actually know how to control in this kind of an environment, nor can we stop that. But it got serious kind of fast, and we were on top of it. So it scares me for community members who are in situations where there's not someone to look out for them, because stress manifests itself in so many different ways in different people. And I don't know what we can do about it, but I feel like there's something that we need to do more of in taking care of each other, especially those people who don't have the capabilities to Zoom or FaceTime or let people know how they're feeling. The GUSR people reached out to Christopher, and he will tell you, how do you feel about COVID?
I prefer not to hear it. I prefer not to hear the word again.
Mm.
Yeah.
Because it makes our whole world upside down.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's super relatable, Chris. It's scary times.
But
I'm
Good.
sorry you had to.
it's great too.
Yes, you guys, especially Danika and Kelsey.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris.
Anytime.
I think all three of you are touching on, things that we're all feeling, but it's good to hear. I think it's important for us to hear about the ways that it's affecting different communities uniquely, right? Like this doesn't affect everybody the same way. It's not affecting everybody equally, and so it's important to highlight the differences in how people are experiencing this time for our students and for our community more broadly. So thank you all for answering that question. We'll try to move away from the COVID talk now. Yep. And Catherine, I think we have time for the next two questions, so I'll jump us off on the next one. You guys have already kind of touched on this a little bit, but we talk a lot in the CCE about reflection, and there's the what, so what, now what model of reflection, and we've talked about what's been going on. We've talked about why it's important, but maybe we can go into what people can do. So for our listeners out there, what can self-advocates do, and what can our allies in this work do for this community at this moment? We talk about employment and job advancement. We talk about education and awareness around issues. But in this moment, what can our community do? Our self-advocates and our allies. And we can start with John again.
So I haven't talked a lot about employment, so I'm gonna jump on that. I think that one of the biggest things that our allies can do, and you all are uniquely in a unique area where you are part of the Gonzaga community, which is very well respected. But I think the biggest thing that you all can do as allies is to really help open the doors and start having those conversations with either your employers or other employers that you've had around hiring people with disabilities. Because once that really gets going, it's kind of like a chain reaction, there are discussions that are had, and sometimes jobs come out of those, which is really important. We want as many people who want to work to find jobs and to get to go to work every day and do what they love, and make a fair wage. Just talking about that for a minute, one of the other things that you can do as an ally to help us to help people with disabilities is to advocate for the ending of sub-minimum wages. Many of you may not know that there's a section of the Fair Labor Standards Act called Section 14C. And that allows individuals with developmental disabilities or other disabilities to be paid less than the minimum wage. And so there are people who are putting in 8 hours a day and only getting like 50 cents or $1. So that's another thing that you guys could help us out as allies. There's actually a bill in the Congress right now that's sponsored by CMR, and it's HR 873, if you want to look it up, the Transformation to Competitive Employment Act.
That's really good to know about, John. Thank you. Danika, how would you respond to this question?
sorry, I was typing out some thoughts as John was talking. So, yeah, I would say one way allies can support everyone or support people in the disability community is to join people who are doing the work and advocating. And there are just so many roles in this community that can be filled, and jobs that, like mine as an employment consultant or a job coach, or whether it's in residential or caregiving, there's just so many places to fill positions that either interact with people with disabilities to support them in the many facets of life. So I'd just say, first and foremost, join us. We need more people on fire for the work and on fire for this population who just want to celebrate abilities and celebrate the people in this community. And also, just kind of piggybacking off of what John said, we need more people with disabilities in the workforce and employed, and just talk to your friends, talk to your aunts, talk to your grandmother's brother's dog, I don't care. Just tell somebody you know about people with disabilities in the workplace, and what a great asset people with disabilities are to the workforce. I mean, there's a plethora of statistics you can look out there that show you how great attendance is and productivity, and kind of squelch a lot of the negative talk about people with disabilities in the workplace. So there's lots of information to back that up and to show people that this is a good thing and needs to be happening more often. And also just educate yourself. I mean, just from working in this field for almost a year next month, I have just learned so incredibly much. And I know that what I've learned is like this much on the scale of like, it goes to forever. So educate yourself and ask about things you don't know about, and work in advocacy and ask questions about advocacy if you don't know what that means. And there's just so much to learn, and it's all just like a Google search away, or a phone call to John or me or anybody on our team or people in GUSR. And I know that GUSR is a great opportunity to even just like dip your foot in the water to like begin doing that kind of work. Because it's a volunteer program that is fun and also educates you. I know that's why you have training and education coordinators on your guys' team. So yeah, I think those are the three ways that you can, that's just 3 ways that you can join the movement and really get engaged with this population. So.
Awesome. Thank you, Danika. And for Chris?
Yes. What's that question? What's that question again?
So we asked, what can self-advocates and allies do to support this community?
Like jobs?
Jobs, yeah.
Yeah. Getting stay employed is one. Dress for success.
Mm-hmm.
How could you help yourself, or they help you get a job?
You can go to a job fair. I'm running out of
Has it been hard for
questions.
you to get a job?
How do I say that?
Awesome. That's good.
Sorry, guys.
No worries, Chris. Yeah. If you have more to say about that, that's great. But if not, that's great too. I mean, it's you spoke about, jobs and
Yeah,
and
jobs, job fairs, and basically, that's why we have job coaches and job developers, and they're there. If there's any good jobs and openings out there.
Or your mom.
Are you all good?
No.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris.
Time.
I don't know that.
Catherine, I think you have the last question.
I was on mute for a second there. What's something, in like a day-to-day basis, what's something in your work or your life that's bringing you hope or joy? I think we like to end on a note of like not naive positivity, but just kind of like to get the full picture of the situation. Yeah, what's something either as activists or self-advocates that like makes this work sustainable for you? It can be like stories or anything, but go for it.
I think I would say that something in my work that brings me joy is just knowing that I'm a part of something bigger than myself, and that there's so many people who are coming together to do amazing things for people with disabilities, whether they're working in employment, residential, it's just like an army of folks who are at the ready to help people with intellectual and developmental disabilities live their best lives. And so I love knowing that when I go to work every day, that's my mission. What can I do with all these other people to help people with disabilities live their best lives? And that's what brings me joy.
That's awesome, John.
Man.
I still love the image of the Zoom call going until midnight last night. That's wild. That's awesome.
From Danika?
I keep waiting for you to ask me the question, even though I know the question. For me, what really keeps me going is the people that I work with and serve. And also like John said, my coworkers as well. It's really neat to like wake up and then like think about my team and just think about how they're all doing the same work. And then across the state and across the country, there are people doing this work because they just like love it and like want to do it. And so it really is like an army, but we need more people. But the people I serve is really what keeps me going. There's a guy that I job coach with, and I've been kind of texting with his parents. He doesn't have a phone, so I text his parents and call his parents, and then they kind of like tell me what he says back. And they sent me a picture last week because I was like, how's he doing? Like, just wanted to check in. And they sent me a picture of him last week. He has like 4 dogs, and they were all sitting on the couch with him. And yeah, he loves his dogs. And they were all sitting on the couch with him. And he has his hat on like always. He always wears the same exact hat, so dirty because he wears it all the time. But he loves it and won't take it off. And he was sitting there with his iPad and looked up, and it was a great picture. And they sent it to me, and they were like, he misses you. He misses working. Like, when's he going back? And I wish I had an answer for them, but I don't. But it's just like things like that that keep me going and keep me going to work, where I get to work with him 3 times a week and know that he loves his job, and that I'm somehow able to be on that journey with him and help him in that too. So yeah, it's cool work. So if you have any more questions about this work, like let me know, because I can talk about it all day.
Oh, I'm next.
Yeah, Chris,
Yes,
what
you're
about
next,
you?
Chris. Yep.
What's something that's bringing
Okay.
you hope or joy these days?
Well, hope and joy is something that we need in our lives. And hope of the future and being here at home. And my dog Daisy.
Anything else bring you joy?
That's awesome. That's awesome, man. Thank you, Chris.
Yep.
Thank you to everybody. Those were our questions, and yeah, ending on that note of joy, I think is just thank you, Chris, for saying hope for the future. I mean, I think that's what we're all feeling right now in some way. So thank you for articulating that for us.
Yep.
I think we have about 5 minutes left, and so we could wrap up, but I think we want to open it up to any questions from our community. So from folks in the chat, from our audience, if you have a question, please put it in the chat, and then we can unmute you so that you can ask a question before we get going. Any questions? Wait a minute.
And thanks, Danica, for throwing that bill up there too. That was good. That's one of those things I would automatically have trouble remembering. So thanks. All right, Anna, go for it. You can either type it or shout it out.
Okay. My hope and joy is me and my sister just started the whole 30.
Very cool.
But it's a little hard for me, but I'm on day 11 today.
Wow, snaps to you. That's hard stuff. I've had my sister and my mom have tried to do that too. So like hard to
We're home. I'm home with my dog Bella, but at 2 till 4 I go to work. I work at Mod Pizza.
Awesome. And that's what's bringing you joy right now?
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you, Anna. L Train?
I had Dairy Queen for breakfast and brunch. I enjoy my family and my friends, and that's good with me.
Awesome. Thank you, L Train. Any other questions or comments people want before we wrap up?
I'd just like to say that you all as a Gonzaga community should be so proud of Danica and the awesome work that she is doing. She has been absolutely amazing, and I hope that the GU community can send us hundreds more like her, because she is just amazing, and she does great work on behalf of people with disabilities and with them. So, thank you, Danica.
I'm crying now. I'm crying on stage.
So awesome.
This is live. Okay, I'm gonna stop.
Oh man, well thank you, John. Well, if there's no more questions right now, I think we could start wrapping up the show. I did want to give Kelsey and Emma a chance. I know we talked a lot about the GUSR community, but if you very briefly want to just say what has been happening this semester, that would be awesome. Just let people know out there what's been going on.
Yeah, so since things ended, we have been trying to reach out to like everybody in GUSR. So we started a sign up where our volunteers can sign up to FaceTime with different participants or talk to them throughout the week. And I think that's been going really well. You heard Chris talk about it. He's loving that. And I've been doing that. I know Kelsey has. I think a lot of volunteers have been doing it. So that's been a lot of fun and a great way to stay connected with them.
Thank you, Emma.
Yeah, definitely. I would have to agree with that. I think it's definitely a change for everyone. Just the sudden abruptness to the end of it, you know, because we went on like the Gonzaga spring break and we didn't know at that time that GUSR was ending. And so I think nobody really had an opportunity to get that sort of closure. And there still isn't really that sense of closure, but I think doing something like this that's completely voluntary, I think has helped a lot of people. And I think it's been a great way to just stay connected and to kind of look forward to what's to come when things return to somewhat normal. But yeah, that's been really cool. And so I'm not sure what that's going to look like for the future, but I think that's been a really cool thing we've been doing. And then hopefully next year we'll have, you know, Celebrate Abilities series in person and continue to do more awesome GUSR work and celebrate abilities some more and sell our t-shirts and have our talent show. But it was really cool that we were able to do this year.
Well, thank you to Emma, Kelsey. Thank you to our guests. For those who are interested in learning more about GUSR, for those interested in learning a little bit more about Atwork, we can post links at the end of this video for everybody so that they can learn a little more about the things that are happening. To our guests, I mean, thank you so much. I feel really honored to be able to host a show like this and to hear from you all. So it was a great honor for me to be here today, and I want to thank you all. Catherine, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I would just say ditto. I mean, it's been always a joy to see people's faces on Zoom, just like from across the world and cities right now. But I think like in particular, it's just been such a gift to come together over these like very like hope-inspiring topics. And so John, Chris, Danika, like thanks for making room in your schedule to chat about this. I think it means a lot to me, and I hope it means a lot to everybody else. So thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah,
Miss
thank you.
Danica.
Thank you, guys. And to all of our guests and all of our listeners at home, if you have an idea for a future show, we'd love to hear it. Please comment on our Facebook and our Instagram, or get in contact with us via email. We're always here for new ideas and new ideas for the show. And yeah, thank you all so much. We had about 23 live audience members on the Zoom chat. Millions and millions waiting anxiously for the videos at home. And we're so excited to keep doing the show. So thank you all so much. And we may have one more episode for the season. We're not quite sure yet as things are wrapping up, but we'll let you know sooner rather than later. Anything else before we get going from our guests or from Kelsey and Emma?
Thank you. Happy Celebrate-abilities.
Yes.
Happy May Day.
Happy Celebrate-abilities, guys. We love y'all. Thank you so much for joining us. And Catherine, whenever you're ready, we can close out.
Sure. Bye,